Welcome to the Ride This Out podcast, where we talk about how to improve your mental health and strengthen your connection to nature and your community, all through one simple solution: the bicycle. My name is Zach Golding, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and mental health therapist. I'll be your host as we discuss the power of pedaling. All right. I wanted to welcome in my guest, Cody Eldridge, to the podcast today. Cody, thanks for taking some time out. I just wanted to first off ask you to jump in by asking you to introduce yourself, just kind of basic intro, who you are, where you're from, and also how you got into biking. So yeah, go ahead, man.
Okay, cool. Great to be here. Name's Cody. I grew up on the East Coast, Jersey in particular. I've always been into cycling ever since I was a little kid. I don't really remember when I started cycling. Um, yeah, and I I don't know. I went through like a phase in my teens, where it's like, oh, cycling is for kids, and I'm cool, and I'm gonna skateboard instead. And it was when I got older, I actually saw like an old beat up bike by our shed. And I think I was about like 20, 21, something like that. And I just decided to take it out for a spin. And next thing I know, I was absolutely hooked.
Nice. I love it. Do you remember what kind of bike that was? It was just an old beat up bike, you said?
Yeah, I don't remember. It was like a 90s, some 90s, like it was like a weird mullet style bike too. Like it had like a bigger front wheel and a small rear wheel, if I remember, but it was like a weird Y frame. I just don't remember the exact bike, but I do remember like my dad helping me fix it up, and then I would like just go riding like for hours. Like sometimes I would speed home from work just so I could go ride my bike like late at night and look at the stars and cool stuff like that.
Awesome. So growing up on the East Coast, and then yeah, tell me a little bit. I mean, you were talking about this cross country trip that you endeavored on by
Oh,
bicycle, right? Like what inspired that, or what's the story behind that?
oh, it's actually kind of funny. So it kind of goes in with me rediscovering the bike as I got older. And I just realized like, so I guess roll back a little, like I used to skateboard all the time and it was a big group of friends that would do it. But as we all got older, we got interested in cars or, we got girlfriends or whatever, and groups started breaking up. So I started finding out that cycling was a great way to spend time by myself, but still be out, like enjoying just, fresh air, getting exercise and stuff like that. And like I said before, I would rush home from work some nights just to ride my bike. And it clicked one day. And I was like, I can ride my bike to work. Like, why not do that? So I started riding my bike back and forth to work. And it was one time on the way to work, I was like, what's stopping me from just riding my bike like 40, 50 miles and then sleeping? And then riding 40, 50 miles the next day and sleeping. And I got it in my head that like I'm gonna ride my bike across country, and it just turned into this like splinter almost, and just like it just like fractured my mind, and it just became like something I consumed myself with. And yeah, it was 2013. I saved up a bunch of money. I got rid of all the possessions that couldn't fit on my bicycle, and I just decided to head west. And yeah, eventually made it to Utah.
Man, so 2013. How old? Not to date you or anything, but how old were you? How old were you in that moment?
27. And
Wow.
there was some factors that went into it too, like the East Coast is very money driven. It's hard to live there. So it was like I was working multiple jobs and it was hard to support myself on the East Coast, especially in the area I was living in was it just cost a lot of money. The cost of living was really high. So I also kind of did it as just like maybe like to find myself, to find a new place, to kind of break the mold. And I had gotten to a point in my life, like even when I was younger, I always said like I'm gonna leave this town one day. I'm gonna leave this town one day. And it was by the time I turned 27, I was like, all right, I'm finally gonna do it.
And yeah, and then I mean, we've never officially met in person. We've just, chatted a little bit on Instagram. I ran across your account because of all your awesome bike pictures and
Thanks.
everything. But yeah, I mean, you're here in Utah now, and you're a mechanic, right? For
Yep.
the bike company that's around. Yeah, tell us what you do there.
So I'm a bike mechanic. I'm what you'd call a senior tech for the local bike share in downtown Salt Lake called Green Bike. Um, it's a blast. I love it. It's something I can do, skills that I have that can help just reinforce the community. Um, and yeah, I'm just super passionate about bicycles and getting out on bikes. And I recognize the things it's done for my life, that it's helped improve everything in my life. So I just want to share that joy with as many people as possible and just get more butts on bikes, I think is the best way to put it.
Yeah, I'm here for all of that. Absolutely. I mean, and you're so passionate about bikes that you rode your bikes to your wedding, right? You and your you and your
Yeah.
wife. I mean, I saw those pictures. Tell us about that.
Uh-huh.
What's the story behind that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I love my bikes so much that it's almost like I wanted them to be a guest at my wedding. Um, and then me and my wife, we share one car, and we typically try to use the car not too often. So we ride our bikes as much as possible. We go downtown Salt Lake, and go out to the movies, go out to eat, and all that good stuff. And I just wanted to show up, all decked out in my suit on my bicycle, and um, I just figured it was a really good way to get in the proper headspace that day and start it out the right way. Because if I started it out the way that I start out most of my days, I felt like then the day is going to go really smooth. Whereas if I felt like if I drove a car or had someone drive me or whatever, Uber, I wouldn't be able to get that fresh air and that sense of freedom before I actually went into my big day.
Yeah, and the pictures are awesome. You guys look great, all decked
Oh
out in
yeah.
your suit, and your wife as well. I mean, was that last
Yep.
summer? When was that?
Last summer, yeah. So June of 2023.
Cool, so cool.
Yeah,
Did
the
it take?
pictures are my favorite. We have a ton of pictures of us actually like driving on or riding down the road and just pictures of the bikes in the background. And yeah, it's phenomenal. I'm really glad that something that I'm so passionate about like was able to be like a focal piece on such a special thing.
Yeah. Did it take some convincing of your wife to say, "Hey, I got
No.
this idea. Let's take these bikes." Yeah. What was her response?
She loved it. Like when I suggested it and was like, we should ride our bikes to the wedding. She's like, that's awesome. I love it. So we did have to do a little coordinating with some people that were visiting and stuff like that to, bring things there and like, because a lot of like food and stuff like that, or, the drinks and whatnot, we had to bring there. So like we had like her mom help us by bringing a bunch of stuff and I do ride a cargo bike, so I was able to bring some stuff. I don't remember what was in the back of my bike, but I was able to bring some of it. But
Yeah,
yeah, she was sold. She was on board. She's like, that is such a good idea.
I love it. And I've seen some other pictures and videos of other people, yeah, getting married and riding their bikes off, and I was like, man, that's awesome. If we were to do it over again, I would definitely do that. I mean, that's such a cool way to start your day, and like you said, and just
Yep.
to ride off together, amazing. And I mean, you live in Salt Lake.
Mhm.
I'm just down the road from you. I'm down here in Utah County, but
Yep.
it looks to me like Salt Lake's got a pretty good bike scene going on. I mean, there's a lot of bike lanes. There's a lot of people out doing group rides and stuff. Like, how would you, yeah, say that bike scene is up there, and like, what do you do to kind of help promote it and be active with it?
It's awesome, and it's only gotten better in the 10, well, now I've been living here 11 years. It's only gotten better in the 11 years. When I first got here and I bought my first Utah bike, I guess you'd say, for like 60 bucks from a guy at work. Um, and the roads weren't very good. There wasn't a whole lot of bike lanes. Now there's like a ton of bike lanes, a ton of infrastructure in place. I don't know for sure, but I've heard rumors that there's actually like a law or something like that where every time they do road construction, they actually have to put a provision to do bike lanes. But the scene itself has just exploded. And then this year, 2024, is the most bike commuters I've seen since I moved here. Um, it's really cool. There's a lot of cool organizations like Sweet Streets, um, a lot of cool events like Open Streets that are, kind of trying to decenter the car and then put walkability and bikeability into it. There's some other cool like group rides like the 999 ride. Sometimes it catches a little bit of a bad rap because it's just a lot of people, and it clogs up the roads. But they do their best to make it flow and not impact cars as much. But it's really neat. It's just really cool. The bike scene here is awesome, and I'm really proud to be a part of it.
So cool. Yeah. In fact, here in a couple weeks, my wife and I are planning on going up there to the bike prom. Do you know?
Oh
Have you ever
yeah,
been to that? Have you seen that?
I have not been to it. I have it on my calendar right now, and I was contemplating going. I think me and my wife had something coming up that weekend that's going to prevent us from going. But I do have a buddy who works at the collective, and he's last year he tried to get me to go, and I think something came up that time. It was like we had to go out of town or something like that. But it is a really cool event, especially to spread awareness and to, help the bike collective, which is a really awesome institution.
Yeah, and that was a big selling point for me too. We have a bicycle collective down here in Provo, and
Hmm.
they do such great work. And yeah, they're connected to London Salt Lake, and their facility is amazing. I mean, all the pictures and stuff. So I'm excited to go check that out. But
Oh my
just
gosh, the building that they put down here is awesome.
yeah,
It's beautiful, especially compared to the older one. Like it was a very small kind of like just, I guess it was like a local bike shop, like just dingy, kind of grimy or whatever. Um, but now it's just this like really nice looking, cool. They got all this space to work with, and I thank the bike collective. I definitely owe some of my skills to the collective. I learned how to build wheels at the collective many, many years ago. I rented a bench for $5 an hour, and they provided all the tools and had the guys come around and show you how to do it. And back then, I was still pretty green as a mechanic, and they help like to this day now when I'm truing wheels or building a wheel or something like that. I always think back to that time.
heck yeah, yeah. And that's I've had a lot of kids that I've worked with actually go down to the collective, and as teenagers, and they love volunteering there, and they can build up their own bikes, and yeah, those skills that they develop, the mechanic wise, that's awesome. I mean, I definitely envy your mechanic skills. So is that kind of where you picked it up? Was it the collective, or as a kid, like just building stuff, or
Um,
what?
I picked it up as a kid. I often say I've been working on bikes for about 30 years. It's just the past 10, 11 years is where I've really refined my skill. It all started way, way, way back in the day with my dad, just showing me how to uh, shorten a chain or, whatever. I'm trying to think of like change a flat, let's say, was probably the primary things. So I knew how to do basic bike maintenance. And where I grew up in Jersey, the closest bike shop was like 15 miles away or like 20 miles away, and it was not very bikeable. So you had to learn how to be self-sufficient. And that's something I love about bikes as well. I think it promotes self-sufficiency versus a car. People kind of get lost in it and they're very reliant on somebody else. But yeah, I just kind of started with basic maintenance, and then as I got back into it more like in my 20s, I would work on my bikes all the time, and my brother would always tease me. He's like, "Oh, you down in the basement making love to your bikes again?" And because I would always be just like tinkering and fixing and trying to figure out how does this work and why does this do this, and I've just been always curious about it. And yeah, when I moved to Utah, that's when I actually was like, well, I love riding bikes. I love working on bikes. Like, why don't I look for a job that supports that? And that's when I kind of started going into different bike shops, and I've had my rounds. I work for Green Bike right now, but I've been in different bike shops and I've worked at rental shops, and I worked for a huge well, I guess, $1 million brand that most people have probably heard of, Rad Power Bikes. And yeah, so I've been in different aspects of the bike industry over the past 8, 9 years or so, and it's been a wild ride, but I'm really happy to be in something that is just, more community focused at this point.
Yeah, and Green Bikes is just that. How long has Green Bikes been around up in Salt Lake?
I believe 11 years, I think. I think they started in 2013.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's just becoming more normalized, and people, like you said, more commuters out and about,
totally.
and with the infrastructure and getting more people out, and I love it. I think
Yep.
it's such a game changer.
And Salt Lake has been just promoting so many, like, just like changing the city so it's more like walkable and bikeable. Like one thing that we just saw recently is the mayor wants to do something called the Green Loop, which is basically downtown is encircled by a park. And it's really cool. It takes inspiration from, I believe in New York, it's called like the High Line. It's like a cool like bike trail. And then Chicago, I think, I can't remember the name of it, but they have this really cool park that's essentially dedicated to like bicycles and promoting more green spaces.
Yeah, I'm a huge advocate for that. I think those when we change those environments, when we change the infrastructure, it changes our behavior, right? And if we get out and we're moving more, whether it's by bike or walking and appreciating that green space, it's just overall better for our physical, mental, emotional health. And so uh, I
Absolutely.
I love it. I absolutely love
100%.
it. Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah.
Um,
And it also has just a very good like environmental aspects, like by having more greenery in a city and removing some of that asphalt, it can cool the temperature of the city quite a bit.
oh yeah, no, absolutely for sure. Um, and I was reminded of on your Instagram account you'd posted about a bike valet that you guys had hosted. Was that through
Yes.
Green Bike and what event was that you guys did that for?
So that was a music festival, Kilby Block Party, and so they hosted the bike valet. I don't know the details of um, like how it was all set up and stuff like that, but essentially, yeah, I helped like volunteer to do the bike valet, and we saw, man, Salt Lake really showed up. We saw, I was like over 900 bicycles each day, or I can't remember off the top of my head right now. I think it was like 400 the first day, 500 the next day.
Wow.
I think it was over 1,000 bicycles over the weekend. And that's just incredible because that's 1,000 cars off the road, 1,000 cars not putting pollution into the atmosphere. Um, yeah, just super cool. And it's really cool to see other organizations doing stuff like this too. Like the farmers market will have bike valleys. I'm trying to think of another. There was an event down at the Three Rivers Confluence. It was called like Beers on the River or something like that. They had a bike valet. So it's really cool because I'm a firm believer in if you build it, they will come. And if you have the infrastructure there, if you have the bike valet, if you have these things available to people that make the option more appealing, then more people will potentially ditch the car and take the bike instead. Um, And it's not like, everybody has to get rid of their car and never drive again. But being mindful and taking your bike more often is definitely, it's almost always a better choice. Um, like 7-Eleven's a few blocks away. Why not take your bike over there, rather than get in the car? Or figuring out ways to use public transit to make that gap maybe not so far. And um, it's just having those options, I think, help people. Like, it gives them more of a choice. So they're like, oh, I'm not going to take the car today. I want to go on an adventure instead.
Yeah. And I've seen bike valets around a little bit, and we actually just started one in our city where we live at in Orem with the
Hmm.
farmers market in conjunction with that. Because and what better way to enjoy farmers market, because there's always so much traffic, there's always so
Yup,
much headache with parking. The majority of the people live within a few miles of that farmers market, and so um,
absolutely.
getting people to ride in there. And so we just started it up just about a month or two ago, and the response has been so cool. So many people are like, "Man, how long you guys been doing this? What is this?" And again, to your point, like the amount that we can reduce the potential barriers or hangups of, well, I can't ride because it's not safe. That I don't. There's not a bike lane, and I don't want to take my bike there
Yep,
because there's not a safe place to lock it up, and someone's going to
yep,
steal it. Well, I don't want to, bike there because, whatever reason, whatever excuse there might be. But if you reduce those, yeah, it makes those options just so much more inviting, so much more.
totally. And
Yeah,
I often say too, like, what's good for, and it not only, it's also good for the environment, but I always say a lot of times what's good for the environment is usually good for your wallet too. So it's like riding a bike is going to cost you less. Like, you're not going to have to pay for parking. You're not going to have to worry about that wear and tear on your vehicle or gas. Um, but yeah, I've been mostly car free for the past 11 years. And I was a few years ago, I did like a calculation, and it was something like I saved like $55,000 by not driving a car around,
yeah,
like based on the average American. And I was
right.
just like, that's crazy.
Oh yeah,
Hmm.
and and not to mention, yeah, like you said, just the overall health and wellness benefits that you receive from it as well.
Oh, totally. That's the best part, like the saving money or saving the environment. That's just a good, like, like side benefit or whatever. Like, the best thing is the mental health and your physical well-being. Um, like, my mental health suffers if I don't ride for a little while. There's been times where, I don't know, I'm on a road trip or something, and I just start getting like frustrated towards the end, and it's like, and then I get home and I get on my bike and I'm like, oh, this is so nice. Or like, a great example is recently me and my wife did a trip out to see the redwoods in California. And on our way back, we stopped through Redding, California, and they had a bike share as well. And I love bike shares. But I was like, let's just put the car at a hotel and let's just go ride bikes all day. And it was like one of the best days on our entire trip. It was so fun just to get out, ride bikes, go out to eat, and like really kind of explore Redding and like feel it and live it and breathe it.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in that too. Any vacation, any town that I go to, I always either try to take my bike or, yeah, rent a bike or borrow somebody's, because yeah, there's just the perspective that you get of a new town, of a new city, by bicycle is just it's different, and
Oh,
different in such a
completely.
better way. It's so good. I love it.
Yep. There's a band I love, the Talking Heads, and the frontman David Byrne. He wrote a book. I'm about to start reading it again, as I started a few years ago. I just don't remember it very well. But he talks about he always would bring his little folding bike when they
Mm,
were on tour. And he said the best way to experience a city, to actually experience it, is to get on your bike and then you're like actually part of the system. Um, that's why I always say I have a philosophy. I have an Instagram account called Life at the Speed of Bike, and I think that life at the speed of bike is a better lived life where it's slower. You know, you see things that you don't. It's almost like the saying, "Stop and smell the roses." Like you will pass by something and be like, I didn't know that there was a little flower shop here, or I didn't know there's a stream over there. You know, and like, because you really get connected to your community, you really engage, and you're just like, you get to smell things and hear things, and just that you wouldn't see from your car, you know. And the best part about a bike too is you can actually just stop anytime you want. Like a car, you have to find parking, do this, and blah, blah, blah. A bike, you just roll up to the front of a store, park your bike, lock it up, you know, and boom, you're there. You know, and it's like, so I feel like you actually get to see things a lot more and participate a lot more when you're on your bicycle.
Yeah, you feel it. I'm curious. What's the name of that book that you were referencing there? I'm really curious. I want to look that up.
Oh, it's called Bicycle Diaries
Oh,
by
heck yeah.
David Byrne. Yep.
Okay.
I know the library in Salt Lake City has it. I just got it a few days ago. I haven't started reading it yet, but a few years back, I read the first few chapters. I don't know why I fell out of it, but I was like, you know what? I just saw him come up for some reason. David Byrne. I think there was like a remaster of one of the albums or something, and I was like, you know what? Oh, that's right. I got to get that book. And he's also just a very he's a big cycling advocate as well. I think it was over the past few years he was at like the Met Gala and brought one of his like really cool titanium bikes, you know, and I don't know, I think the company went out of business that makes it, but it wasn't like a super crazy expensive bike either. It was something that like was within the reach of like normal folk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so cool. I love it. Yeah, when whether they're musicians or actors or athletes or something, when they really embrace the bicycle. Just recently, I don't know if you saw that reel that was going around about Bill Walton talking because he passed away, famous basketball player, um, kind of a Grateful Dead head, hippie dude, but just a genuine guy. And there was, he was talking about the bicycle, and he's just like, my bicycle is everything to me. It's my gym, it's my
Yeah,
church, it's everything. And I'm just like, man, that's so true, right? That's so true.
absolutely.
I love it when that advocacy spotlight, kind of hits the main stage
Yeah.
like that.
It's cool too because I am seeing a shift where people are becoming a lot more embracing of bicycles. Like
Yeah.
I've been, I feel like I've been hacking at this for a long time, and people in the past 5 years or so are really starting to come around. I think because climate change is really starting to like make people think, and then it's just there's a lot of things I think going on that people are like, you know, it costs me a lot of money to buy groceries. Maybe I should ride my bike so that I'm not spending the rest of it on gasoline or something like that. But there's also a lot of hope in the youth right now that I heard recently. There was a study that a lot of younger kids are deciding not to get their driver's licenses. And they're not really sure why, but it's really cool because that means that there's people out there that are going to be riding bikes, they're going to be taking public transit, you know, and they're just going to be doing these things that I think are just way healthier for our communities and our bodies.
Yeah. No, I'm with you for sure. I mean, is we definitely still have to learn responsibilities and learn the rules of the road. And I always say that too. Like, what makes a really good driver is if they have the perspective of a bicycle rider, right? And what makes a really good bicycle rider is
100%.
they also have the perspective of a driver. Like, you kind of have to
Yep.
live in this, symbiotic relationship of recognizing and respecting each other. I was in New York City not too long ago, and we were biking around there, and I was blown away. I thought I would
Yeah.
be like so nervous about it, but like you're there and you're riding in
Yep.
the bike lanes, and everyone just kind of is looking out for each other. It was actually really cool. It was a really cool experience.
Yeah. I'll be in New York in September again this year. But last year I was in New York. I volunteer for my wife's nonprofit to help her. We pack meals. So we do this like 9/11 day of service in New York City.
Oh, awesome.
But I love it because I'm like, let's go get city bikes and ride
Yeah.
around, And when we first got there, I was nervous as heck. I was like, oh my gosh, these cars are going crazy.
Yeah.
But as soon as I got comfortable in it, and we kind of did a little bit of the side streets and stuff, we rode to Central Park and rode around, and I was like, this is awesome. I'm like,
Yep.
and I grew up outside of New York, and I used to hate going to New York because of how busy it was. But seeing it from that perspective, it completely changed how I feel about New York City now. And I was like, this place is actually pretty rad.
Yeah.
But when I was a kid, it was like, it felt like really busy and just
Hmm.
like a concrete jungle, so to speak. But that right there shows you that riding a bike just, it can flip your perspective sometimes. Um, but yeah, going back to what you said about driving, like knowing what a bicycle, cyclist sees and driver, vice versa. I've always said, I think before you get your license, you should be required to ride a bike for like a year or two and then graduate to your driver's license
Yeah.
because it just makes you so much more aware of like when people are walking, when people are biking, and when you're in your car, you're just like, oh, okay, I don't want to be inconsiderate,
Yeah.
versus like we just kind of throw these young kids like a license and it's like, here, like, don't kill yourself. And that's about it.
Yeah. And here's
It's
this
like,
here's this phone that's gonna distract you the whole time
yeah,
too.
yeah, that too.
Goodness. Yeah.
Totally. And it's crazy. But yeah, and it's these protected spaces for cyclists that are just a total game changer. Like growing up in Jersey, there really wasn't bike lanes, there wasn't, infrastructure, and it's like you're in the shoulder, and it's like cars are like whizzing by you super fast. So when I'm riding to work now, and sometimes I think about when I would ride to work back, you know, 15 almost, yeah, about 15 years ago or so, um, it's just so much more lax now. Like I just feel so much better about like my little like bike lane and having my own space. But yeah, so it's excellent to see these things like changing in front of our eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, there's a lot that's definitely contributed to that. I think the e-bike has definitely opened up accessibility for a lot of people, which is
Totally.
awesome. I'm all about that too. If you know, it shortens their commute or,
Yep.
just makes it, older people are able to get out and ride. My big thing on e-bikes is those just at least pedal, like sometimes people are
Yeah.
just throttling. I'm like, no, just pedal.
I know, I
You're
know.
making us look bad.
Uh-huh.
Just pedal around.
Totally. Like if you're just throttling, you might as well just get like an electric motorcycle, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
funny thing about e-bikes, yeah, I got typecasted as like the e-bike guy because the only bike shops that would give me an opportunity back in the day, because that was the hard part being a mechanic, it's like breaking into a clique, and like
mm,
mechanics tend to be like protective and kind of cliquey, and no one would give me a chance. So even though I had like 20 something years experience working on bikes, they wouldn't give me the opportunity. They didn't want to teach me. And it was an e-bike shop. I think it was back in 2014, 2015, somewhere around there. I decided I'm quitting my job and I'm going to become a bike mechanic, whatever it takes. And there was this little bike shop down in Murray called Blue Monkey Bicycles at the time. One of the guys still runs a YouTube channel, but that's another story. But anyway, they're the only ones that would give me an opportunity, and they only had part-time hours at the time. I was like, whatever, I'm sold on it. And they're like, we can only pay you $9 an hour. And I'm like, whatever, dude. Like, I want to work on bikes. So it was cool because then now I'm working on the bicycles and I was learning something new at the time. So I'm learning these motors and controllers and all this other stuff. But the strange part about it is then I become the e-bike guy. So everywhere I've gone after that, they're like, oh, you worked on e-bikes? Here, fix this.
yeah,
Oh, do this. And it's led me to some really cool places like um, when I was working for Rad Power Bikes there for a few years, it was really cool to learn that stuff. And um, but yeah, in a way, like thank God for the e-bikes because it allowed me to get my foot in the door to like finally become what I'd call like a professional bike mechanic.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and and I'm sure 10 years ago when e-bikes were coming out, everyone was a little bit skeptical about them,
Oh
right?
gosh. So back
Calling
then
everybody
I was,
cheaters.
yep, back then I was one of those guys too. Like I was
Yeah,
like, yeah, if you're not riding steel and it's not single speed, then you're not riding a bike, you know?
yeah,
Like I was kind of one of those snobby guys, you know?
sure.
And I'll tell you what, it was one day that completely flipped me. This guy came in and he was looking to buy an e-bike and he was missing a leg.
Mm,
And he said, yeah, I lost my leg in a motorcycle accident. And the only way I can ride a bike is if I ride an e-bike. And that just completely changed everything for me.
yeah,
I was just like, wow. Like, and it got me down this road thinking like, if I couldn't ride my bike, what would I do? So it really kind of opened me up and I became a lot more accepting of them. And yeah, now I have three e-bikes. I have nine bikes total, but I have three e-bikes and what is it? Six vintage classic, treks. I like collecting old treks
love it.
for some reason. But yeah, my main ride is this blue, the company that makes Radio Flyer wagon,
Yeah,
like the little
yeah,
red wagons. They make e-bikes now. And I acquired this e-bike and it's the coolest thing in the world. It's like I call it my little e-bike pickup truck because
yeah,
it's got this basket on the back and it's awesome. Me and my wife go to the um, garden store and we throw soil in the back. We go grocery shopping. We're able to fit four full bags of groceries in the back, and it's just incredible because I can throw everything in it and ride. And yeah, it really blends like bicycle and car. So
yeah,
I'm able to get to work without being sweaty or tired. I'm able to get up the big hill back to my house without being sweaty or tired at the end of the day. And I often say, if I want to abuse myself, I go take my regular bikes
yeah,
out.
yeah,
But if I want to just chill and cruise and have like a really awesome ride, I take my e-bike out.
yeah. No, I'm with you 100%. I got an e-bike a few years ago to help with commuting. Yeah, just for the sweat factor and
Yep.
all that. But it was funny because after I got my e-bike, I actually ended up purchasing more just regular bikes because I was like, I
Yeah.
love riding so much. I want to get a new road bike and I want to get a new mountain bike and I want to
Hmm.
get a new. So it actually like inspired me to get back into just the regular biking more general
Totally.
because that again, that power of pedaling just kicked back in. I was like, I love this. I love this.
Yeah.
So it's a great reminder for
It's
all of us.
totally. And you know what? It is a game changer for a lot of people who are curious about getting into bicycles.
Yeah.
And it really does open up the avenue sometimes. Like, because I think the biggest barrier to becoming a commuter, like a cyclist commuter, is, what am I going to do with this? Like, I can't be sweaty, like there's just certain barriers to it. And distance can be a barrier. There's just so many factors. But the e-bike just really levels that out. And it
Yeah.
really makes it so that people, and sometimes they get into it and they fall head over heels. And then the next thing you know, like you said, they're buying a new road bike and a new mountain bike, or they start to realize they like the look of the bikes from when they were kids, and now they're buying old vintage bikes. And it's just really kind of neat how that um, e-bikes really have brought a lot of people into the fold. It's excellent.
Yeah. It's so cool. Well, yeah, and to that point, before we end, that's what I wanted to ask you is just like, what advice, what tips would you give to people, either getting back into biking or, they're looking, yeah, getting into it and, yeah, what tips, what advice would you give to them?
Stick with it. Let's
Mm,
see. It's harder, but it's worth it. And, like when the weather's fine, like when you're riding and the weather's great, it's awesome and it feels good. And maybe like a rainstorm or the snow might be daunting, but there's a certain like pride that you get when you get through that. Like maybe your first rainstorm you're kind of scared of, but um, it's like don't worry. Like once you get home, there's hot drinks and there's a shower. There's whatever you need to make you feel comfortable afterwards, and it's just stick with it, keep doing it. I think another thing is prepare. So like um, learn everything you can. Like learn how to fix a flat, how to extricate yourself from a situation, how to like plan around it. Like what would happen if your tire went flat halfway through your ride? Like how are you gonna get home? So just kind of plan and give yourself a good framework. And if you have that good framework, I think that the rest of it is just stick with it and you'll find yourself on the other side just a happier and better person, I think.
Yeah, I agree 100% to those. And I would even say, like as you're talking about preparing, sometimes that can be an overwhelming burden of like, I don't know, I'm not a mechanic like Cody, I
Yeah.
can't, rebuild everything. But you ease into it and you start learning,
Yep.
and there's so many easy
You
ways to figure it
you
out.
find what works for you, and it's
Yeah.
like I think another thing to anybody that's thinking about getting back into it or thinking about doing it is don't be put off as well by what people tell you have to have.
Mm,
Because like I've seen people on $120 Walmart bike have just as much fun as the guy on the $5,000 specialized, whatever.
yeah.
And I think a lot of people see these like things like the Lycra and like helmets and just like certain things on your bikes as a barrier. And, like I think that people should understand that they can come as they are on a bicycle, just like your car. Like there's no special equipment or special thing you need to do to have fun and just have fun with it, and enjoy it. And uh, yeah, just
Yeah.
have a great time because
Yeah.
it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. To that point, I'm working with a guy right now, in therapy, and he's battling some things, and I was talking to him about biking and getting into new hobbies and stuff, and he was like, "Well, I've been looking at getting into road bikes, but man, they're just so expensive.
Hmm.
I have this old Walmart bike, but I just don't want to." I'm like, "Pull that out, pull that
Yeah.
out and ride." And yeah, a couple weeks has gone by, and he's like, "I've ridden that bike every morning, and I've loved it, and it's
Yep.
just changed everything." And I'm like, you ease into it. You like you said, you come as you are, you ride with what
Yep.
you have, and those other things will come later. But
Totally.
yeah,
And a
just
lot a lot of times I call it as like a pay as you go bike. It's like start with what you can, and especially if you're curious, maybe you hate it. There's a lot of people out there that they're like, you know what, I'm gonna start camping or I'm gonna start backpacking. And it's like they find out after buying all the gear, they're like, you know what, actually I don't really like this that much. You
right,
know?
right.
So it's like just start out on that small end, and if you love it, those things will come later on. They're always going to be there, and you can always because bikes are one of those things you can get pretty heavy. Like you could spend a lot of money on bicycles.
Next thing you know, you got 9 bikes in your garage, right, Cody?
Yeah, 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 and then my wife will say something like, "Do you really need another?" And I'm like, "Well, it is, one n plus one is the saying." Oh
Yep.
shoot.
No, that is the definite factor for sure. You always got to have at least one more,
Yeah,
but just enjoy what you got, and ride what you have, and just enjoy those moments. That's great advice, man.
absolutely. Yeah,
Well, good. Well, Cody, again, thanks for taking some time out. I'm looking forward to. We'll meet up sometime. You're not too far away from me. We'll go for a ride
yeah,
sometime. Absolutely.
absolutely. That would be fantastic.
Okay. All right, man. Well, I'll let you go.
All
Thanks
right,
again.
cool. Yeah, great to be here. Have a good one.
See ya.
Thanks.